In the figure, name a pair of complementary angles, a pair of supplementary angles, and a pair of adjacent angles. Complementary angles are two positive angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. In the figure, the measure of angle ABC is 28 degrees, and the measure of angle GEF is 62 degrees. When you add these two angle measures together, 28 degrees plus 62 degrees gives you 90 degrees. Therefore, angle ABC and angle GEF are complementary angles because their measures have a sum of 90 degrees. Next, supplementary angles are two positive angles whose measures have a sum of 180 degrees. In the figure, the measure of angle HJK is 72 degrees, and the measure of angle DEG is 108 degrees. When you add these two angle measures together, 72 degrees plus 108 degrees gives you 180 degrees. Therefore, angle DEG and angle HJK are supplementary angles because their measures have a sum of 180 degrees. Finally, adjacent angles are two angles that share a common vertex and side but have no common interior points. From the figure, you can see that angle DEG and angle GEF share a common vertex E and a common side ray EG but have no common interior points. Therefore, angle DEG and angle GEF are adjacent angles. A. Angle 5 is the complement of angle 3, and the measure of angle 3 equals 53 degrees. Find the measure of angle 5. And B. Angle 4 is a supplement of angle 2, and the measure of angle 4 equals 29 degrees. Find the measure of angle 2. In part A, to find the measure of angle 5, first draw a diagram with complementary adjacent angles to illustrate this relationship. Now, two angles are complementary angles if their measures have a sum of 90 degrees. So, the measure of angle 3 plus the measure of angle 5 must equal 90 degrees. You are told that the measure of angle 3 is 53 degrees. So, you can substitute this value in for the measure of angle 3. To solve for the measure of angle 5, you can subtract 53 degrees from both sides of the equation. This gives you the measure of angle 5 equals 37 degrees. Therefore, the measure of angle 5 is 37 degrees. In part B, to find the measure of angle 2, first draw a diagram with supplementary adjacent angles to illustrate this relationship. Now, two angles are supplementary angles if their measures have a sum of 180 degrees. So the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 4 must equal 180 degrees. You are told that the measure of angle 4 is 29 degrees. So you can substitute this value in for the measure of angle 4. To solve for the measure of angle 2, you can subtract 29 degrees from both sides of the equation. This gives you the measure of angle 2 equals 151 degrees. Therefore, the measure of angle 2 is 151 degrees. Angle The veins in a leaf form a pair of supplementary angles. Find the measures of the angles when the measure of angle 1 equals 7x plus 13 degrees and the measure of angle 2 equals 25x plus 7 degrees. Two angles are supplementary angles if their measures have a sum of 180 degrees. So, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 must equal 180 degrees. In this problem, you are told that the measure of angle 1 equals 7x plus 13 degrees and the measure of angle 2 equals 25x plus 7 degrees. You can substitute these expressions into the equation for the measure of angle 1 and the measure of angle 2. Now, to solve for x, you can first combine like terms on the left-hand side of the equation. 7x plus 25x gives you 32x, and 13 plus 7 gives you 20. Next, you can subtract 20 from both sides of the equation. This gives you 32x equals 160. Now you can divide both sides of the equation by 32. This gives you x equals 5. So the value of x is 5. Now, the measure of angle 1 is equal to 7x plus 13 degrees. You found the value of x to be 5, so you can substitute 5 in for x. When you simplify, 7 times 5 gives you 35, and 35 plus 13 gives you 48. Therefore, the measure of angle 1 equals 48 degrees. Next, the measure of angle 2 is equal to 25x plus 7 degrees. You can substitute 5 in for x. When you simplify, 25 times 5 gives you 125, and 125 plus 7 gives you 132. Therefore, the measure of angle 2 equals 132 degrees. Identify all linear pairs and all of the vertical angles in the figure. Two adjacent angles are a linear pair when their non-common sides are opposite rays. So, to identify all of the linear pairs in the figure, look for adjacent angles whose non-common sides are opposite rays. The linear pairs in this figure are angle 1 and angle 2, angle 2 and angle 3, angle 3 and angle 4, angle 4 and angle 1, angle 5 and angle 6, angle 6 and angle 7, angle 7 and angle 8, and angle 8 and angle 5. Next, two angles are vertical angles when their sides form two pairs of opposite rays. So, to identify all of the vertical angles in this figure, look for angles formed by intersecting lines. The vertical angles in this figure are angle 1 and angle 3, angle 2 and angle 4, angle 5 and angle 7, and angle 6 and angle 8. This gives you a list of all of the linear pairs and all of the vertical angles in this figure. All of the two angles form a linear pair. The measure of one angle is 8 times the measure of the other angle. Find the measure of each angle. To find the measure of each angle, first draw a diagram that illustrates this relationship. Next, you can label the measure of the first angle as x degrees, and because the measure of the second angle is 8 times the measure of the first angle, you can label the measure of the second angle as 8x degrees. Now, the angles in a linear pair are supplementary angles, meaning their measures have a sum of 180 degrees. So, the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 must equal 180 degrees. You can substitute x degrees in for the measure of angle 1 and 8x degrees in for the measure of angle 2. When you combine like terms on the left-hand side of the equation, x plus 8x gives you 9x. Now, to solve for x, you can divide both sides of the equation by 9. This gives you x equals 20. So, the measure of the first angle, which is equal to x degrees, is 20 degrees. Also, the measure of the second angle is equal to 8x degrees. When you substitute 20 in for x and simplify, 8 times 20 gives you 160. So, the measure of the second angle is 160 degrees. Therefore, the measures of the angles are 20 degrees and 160 degrees.